Hello and welcome to This One Thing, a daily video devotional coming to you from First Presbyterian Church of Fort Lauderdale. My name is Nick Merchant. I'm one of the associate pastors here. And each day, one of our pastors or staff members are going to be looking at one of the texts in the Revised Common Lectionary's daily readings, and we'll be pulling out one thing for you to consider. We hope that you find this an encouraging and thought-provoking part of your day. Enjoy. A few years ago, when I was still working in youth ministry, Chandler introduced our group to a project of making Easter baskets for some of the foster families in our community. And so that night we were working with our middle school students, and we had them lined up sort of assembly line style, packing these baskets. And so they were packing them with different crafts and little plastic Easter eggs and candy, of course. And as the night began to wind down and we were wrapping up, it became clear that we were going to have some extra M&Ms. And so the students began taking these M&Ms and trying to throw them into each other's mouths. And as they had a little bit of success, they moved further and further apart. And so M&Ms kind of began flying around the room. And my wife, Amy, who is one of our key volunteers in youth ministry, she turned around just in time to see one of our students pop an M&M into his mouth, and she said, "Did you just eat that M&M that you found on the floor?" To which the student responded, "I ate every M&M that I found on the floor, and one of them was a little wet." As I was typing this up and thinking about this story earlier today, I just chuckled. I couldn't help but laugh, and still I smile thinking of this story and the honesty of this student and just how disarming it was. Not only admitting, of course, that he'd eaten the one, but that he had eaten every M&M he'd found. Our scripture this morning comes from the Gospel of Mark, and it's Mark's last chapter here. And here in these verses, we find Jesus having these encounters with different people, and the first encounter is between Jesus and Mary, and it says that Mary goes to tell people that she has seen the risen Christ, and that when she does, nobody believes her. And then Jesus encounters a couple of people on the road, a couple of travelers, and they too, they go and tell some of Jesus's followers that they've seen Jesus Christ and that he's risen, and they don't believe these two either. And then Jesus appears to the 11 disciples, and he says this to them. He says, "Go into all the world and proclaim the good news to the whole creation." Proclaim the good news to the whole creation. In yesterday's scripture, Mary Magdalene hears something similar when she first sees Jesus. She's told to go and tell. What I want us to see or hear this morning or this day is that they're not told to go and convince. In fact, as we read today, a lot of them aren't believed to begin with. But they're not tasked with convincing. They're simply tasked with telling. And you and I are not tasked with convincing. We're simply asked to go and tell. When we set out to convince people of something, we begin by putting our defenses up. We prepare for a fight. Here's the one thing, friends, is is that sharing the good news is not about preparing for the fight. Sharing the good news is about willing to be vulnerable. It's about willing to be disarmingly honest, about sheepishly sharing that we've eaten every M&M off of the floor. Because when we do that, when we're willing to be vulnerable with people, then we allow others to see how the risen Christ has been at work in our own lives. That's what it looks like to go and tell. And so will you be willing to do that? Will you be willing to be disarmingly honest in proclaiming the good news? Friends, be safe, be well. We'll see you tomorrow.